Hi, I'm Dean K. In this video we're going to be talking about how to choose the right vocal microphone. I'm a guitar player, so I've got quite a few different guitars, different boutique stomp boxes for different sounds, and amplifiers. And I have microphones so that I can make them sound the way I want them to on the stage and in the studio. They're the tools of my trade. I know many drummers who feel exactly the same way. They've got multiple drum kits sometimes for different stages, different cymbals and percussion toys, and microphones so that they can make their sound the way they want it on the stage and in the studio. Now, for some reason, with some exceptions, many vocalists that I know don't go to these extremes. In fact, some vocalists don't even own their own vocal microphone. This means that when they go to the club that night, they are at the mercy of whatever beer-soaked microphone is shoved in their face. Not exactly hygienic, but more importantly, it means that they've relinquished the control of their vocal sound. For the purpose of this video, we're going to assume that you, as a vocalist, lead singer, background vocalist, perhaps an instrumentalist who also sings, or an engineer who's working with vocalists, that you want to retain control of your vocal sound. And for that, we've enlisted the help of one of today's professional working sound engineers. Please welcome Craig Overbay.
Hi, Dean. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Let's talk about your experience. How did you get started in the audio industry?
Well over 20 years ago, I was living in Portland, Oregon, where I grew up, and a friend of mine was playing in a band who became a pretty popular local band, and I just started working for him as a roadie, pretty much humping gear, helping them move stuff around. Their local sound company provider then was a company called Concert Audio, and the guy that was doing sound for him at that point in time noticed how hard I was working and ended up offering me a job. And there I ended up doing basically what I would consider a paid internship.
Who are you working with these days?
I have been fortunate enough to work for a lot of really great bands. I have worked for everybody from Nirvana to the Foo Fighters to Weezer, The Cure, and I was fortunate enough last year to even do Spinal Tap, unwigged and unplugged, and we did a couple of electric shows, and I figure after doing Spinal Tap, I'm done.
You've got it all covered now.
Once again, like I said, I've been very fortunate.
Craig, let's start at the very beginning on how to choose the right vocal mic. There's so many options available today. Where do you start?
Dean, I think you need to choose your application. I think you really need to decide what it is that you're going to use the microphone for. Is it for live use or is it for studio use? Are you playing in an electric band or an acoustic band?
So if it's loud or if it's soft, makes a big deal.
It makes a really big difference between what type of microphone you're going to use, what type of singer you are, and then, of course, how much money do you want to spend? Do you want to spend $100 or $400?
Sounds like it can be pretty confusing then.
It really isn't. It's no more complicated than a guitar player taking the time to listen to the difference between a Fender Twin and a Marshall stack, or a drummer going through 10 snare drums to find the perfect sounding 1955 Pearl snare drum.
Okay, so let's get down to the basics of choosing vocal microphones. There's two basic kinds of vocal microphones, a dynamic mic and a condenser mic. Craig, why don't you tell us about dynamic microphones?
Well, dynamic microphones I consider the workhorse of the industry. They're affordable, they're rugged, they're durable, and they will definitely get the job done. They're a fine choice for any rock singer in any rock band. Condenser microphones traditionally were thought of as more of a studio microphone due to their greater sensitivity, and they obviously have a great sound. More recently, over time here, they've become much more affordable. They're much more rugged and durable than they were. Having said all of that, if you are a person that likes to throw a microphone around on stage or drop your microphone a lot, I would stick to a dynamic microphone.
So for a studio quality sound, your first choice might want to be for a condenser vocal microphone.
Yeah, if you've got very breathy vocal or something that's light and airy, or I should say it's more subtle nuance. You're not screaming into the mic like a rock singer would per se. That a condenser microphone would absolutely be a fine choice.
If you have a controlled stage sound, perhaps for a singer-songwriter or a jazz singer in a club, it might be a good choice.
Yeah, acoustic music, all that, you're definitely not going to go wrong with a condenser.
On stage, other than your voice, the most vital link in the chain is the microphone. The preamp, compressor, equalizer, speakers, all the way to the sound that the audience hears is dependent upon the signal that the microphone generates. So I think it's important to take a moment to get educated in how a microphone works and certain performance characteristics that might affect your decision in buying a vocal microphone. Let's start by talking about a microphone's polar pattern or pickup pattern. Craig, you want to talk about that for a moment?
Well, Dean, polar pattern or pickup pattern, in simple terms, just really refers to what the mic hears. Here I have a cardioid. They're reasonably forgiving. just as an example, on how much you can sing around them. Of course, they'd prefer if you sing right in them. And then here I have a hypercardioid, which is a little less forgiving. It has a tighter pattern on it, which also means, of course, it's going to hear less from the sides and around it and hear more of your voice. But it's going to require that you be a little more disciplined in your craft and stay on the microphone. If you tend to be more Frank Sinatra-like, I would stick to a cardioid. My first choice is a hypercardioid for a vocal mic. It does mean that you have to keep the singer disciplined and stay right on the mic.
Another performance characteristic for microphones is off-axis rejection. Now, most musicians are probably not too favorable with the idea of rejection, but this can be a good thing in choosing a microphone. Craig, let's talk about off-axis and on-axis rejection.
This is actually pretty important to microphones' overall sound. And I have a cardioid microphone right here, and I was just going to do a quick little demonstration, the least scientific way I know possible as a sound guy. And I'm going to talk straight into the microphone, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. And then I'll move straight to the side, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. And then all the way to the back, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. And obviously, as you can tell, the sound changes as you move around. And that off-axis rejection is just, it's what that microphone is hearing, i.e. the Marshall stack stage right that's turned up to 11. With a cardioid microphone, you're going to get a little bit of bleed from the side, but not horrible.
It's fascinating how a cardioid microphone picks up the sounds from around it. Let's talk about something with a tighter pickup pattern, a hypercardioid mic.
What I've got here is OM7, which is a hypercardioid, and it's got a great pickup pattern. And I'm going to do the same highly technical demonstration that I did before, which is starting at the right on top of the microphone. Once again, it is a hypercard. You want to stay right on top of this microphone.
So that's
check 1, 2. This is on axis. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Here's completely off axis. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. And this would be for rear rejection. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. So that gives you a quick little demonstration of the different polar pattern that's associated with a hypercard.
So a hypercardioid is going to have a tighter pickup pattern, reject more noise, a loud drum set or guitar on stage, and a cardioid is going to have a wider pickup pattern and be more accepting to sound coming in from the side.
Absolutely, Dean. That's probably why I tend to lean towards these hypercards if you're doing these loud bands, or even if you're not, just to isolate that vocal sound as much as possible. A hypercard, if you can just discipline the singers, the backup singers, to stay on these mics and have great mic technique, it makes all the difference in the world in sound quality.
Let's talk about another performance characteristic for microphones that might affect your decision in purchasing a microphone: gain before feedback. Explain that to us.
Feedback is probably one of your worst enemies, but it really just means how loud can you get that microphone before it feeds back, either in the front of house speakers or in the wedges.
How hard you can sing into the microphone when you're on stage before it starts squealing at you.
It's really not about how loud a vocal mic will get. It's really how it's designed to avoid feedback.
I've worked with some very loud singers in my day on stage and in the studio, and that can really affect your decision on what kind of microphone you want to get. Let's talk about sound pressure level, SPL.
SPL, sound pressure level, it's really about what a microphone can take into it. What we have, once again, is our two basic microphone types, a dynamic and a condenser. The dynamic is much more forgiving. If you're a screamer, if you're loud, and once again, if you abuse mics, a dynamic is really going to be your best choice. The condenser, on the other hand, once again, as we've spoken about, has much greater subtlety and probably is considered more hi-fi. Although these newer condensers that are out now will take a lot more punishment and a higher SPL level. And if you're fortunate enough to buy a good condenser, they'll have a built-in pad on them, and you can engage that, and they'll take a higher level of input.
It might seem like a strange question, but is it even possible for you as a singer to determine objectively which microphone is best on the sound of your voice? Maybe it's a good idea to bring a friend into a music store and let them hear your voice as you're singing into these different microphones to really evaluate objectively how you sound with these different tools of the trade, right?
Yeah, sound is very subjective. It's a great idea to bring somebody along, a bandmate or whoever, your mom, I don't care who it is, somebody who knows the sound of your voice and has heard you sing before. And you really need, in the retail environment, to try a few different microphones from various manufacturers and really listen to the difference in those sounds.
Then you can find a knowledgeable person who can help you go through all these things we've been talking about, these performance characteristics, and how each individual microphone might use gain before feedback or SPL to help you use the microphone on stage to cut above the sound and the clutter of and be heard to the audience, right?
Yeah, and finding a knowledgeable salesperson is of paramount importance. If you're not having a good retail experience, you need to go somewhere else.
We've been talking about performance characteristics on how to achieve better control of your sound on stage. We've been using AUDIX microphones. Let's talk about the OM2.
Well, the OM2 is an entry-level microphone. It's for the budget-minded, but it's not lacking in performance in any way. It has a great feedback rejection. It's still dynamic, so it's quite rugged, and it is a hypercard. It'll take the high SPL input that we're talking about, and once again, if you're a guy that likes to throw microphones around and goes through a few of them at a time, buy two.
And it's one of the most popular microphones in the entire AUDIX line, so you're going with something that's a known commodity.
Yet, at this price point, I don't think you can go wrong.
So the OM2 is a great buy for someone who just wants an all-around great microphone. If you want to spend a few more dollars and get a better microphone, an OM5 might be a good suggestion. What are you getting for spending a few more dollars?
It's a better sounding microphone to start with. It also has better off-axis rejection, and due to that, you're going to get better gain before feedback.
So less feedback in your stage sound.
Absolutely.
So talking from your own experience, which AUDIX microphones perform the best for you?
For me, it's been the OM7. It is my one go-to mic. It sounds great. It sounds great at front of house. You can get it really loud in the monitors, which makes the monitor guy happy, and it makes the band happy, and it performs well day in and day out.
Thanks, Craig, for sharing your wisdom and sound expertise and helping us choose a vocal microphone.
It's been my pleasure. I hope it's been helpful.
Thanks for taking time to watch this video on how to pick the right vocal microphone for your sound. Armed with this information about performance characteristics and how a microphone works, you can take control of your stage sound. Want more information? I recommend going to the AUDIX website, the Mic Finder. It'll ask you a few questions about how you use a vocal microphone and help you find the right microphone for your particular needs. I'm Dean Kay for AUDIX Microphones.